And welcome back to Who Would Win. And today's Who Would Win, that damn clown shows back up again. You have no idea how many times Pennywise is suggested for Who Would Wins. Ever since that damn remake came out, or reboot, that damn movie, which was good. It was good. I enjoyed it very much. Everyone's been like, do Pennywise. I try to save some of those ones for Halloween, but every once in a while, Pennywise is one of those guys because he's horror, but he's not exactly a Halloween-specific character. I can get away with doing him outside of the Halloween months, or Halloween month. So Pennywise, this comes to us, by the way, from I believe it's Hamoud Faisal or Faisal, and he asked the question: who would win in a fight? Pennywise the clown, or It from It, versus Slenderman, the creepypasta creation, supposedly, allegedly. Sorry about that. Now, to understand these characters, we have to understand their backgrounds. Pennywise, at this point, I've done the channel so much I can basically just nearly quote it verbatim. But I just usually sum up. Pennywise. Now, Pennywise, the dancing clown, is not the true form of Pennywise. Pennywise, by all accounts, doesn't truly have a true form. Basically, what it is for the weird and wacky world of Stephen King is that there is our universe, and then there is basically like a macroverse beyond it. So here's us. There's our universe that surrounds us. Pennywise is kind of like an almost eldritch being from that universe. He doesn't truly, like, his true form is technically the Deadlights, but it's also implied that yes, he does technically, like the turtle like Meteorin, the turtle, which is his natural enemy more or less, does have a form. He's a turtle. Pennywise technically does have a form, but it's basically, our minds can't process what that form actually is. The closest anyone has ever, I think one of the Losers Club once saw him as like this orange ball of hair and teeth and stuff like that at one point. The spider was like the closest we could visualize his actual form. Point being, though, he doesn't have a really true form that by definitions we understand. So, but basically, he's at odds with turtle. He represents basically consumption and greed and gluttony and all that stuff, whereas turtle represents creation and life. But he basically set fruit and dairy made, and every 23 years for a month, I believe. 23 days for 23 years? Or is it 27 years? Crap. Because 23 years, I believe, is Jeepers Creepers, not a Pennywise clown. I think it's 27 years, isn't it? I think. Hold on. The last it took place in there in 1980, because they're scaling it up basically for the modern day is what they're doing. I think it's like 30. It's like 27 years. Point being, every some odd years he wakes up, feeds for a certain amount of time, goes to sleep. He feeds. Technically, he does feed on people. He does eat people, but he likes kids the best, and he enjoys instilling fear. He loves playing the mind games with you. Well, he's also psychic. He can actually pluck out what your fear is, use that against you, instill a fear. It basically described it as salting the meat. He seasons you, basically. Makes you taste better. So, basically, he can read your thoughts to some degree. At least on some level, he can read your thoughts. Pluck the fear out of your head. It's like, I'm going to basically show you what you're afraid of. Yeah, it's like, yes. Okay, gonna eat your hair. So that's basically what he does. He's extremely sadistic, loves playing the mind games. He's also usually pretty good at luring you into a false sense of security, particularly like being a very solid clown. Tim Curry was actually a pretty good clown. Peter Skarsgård one. Wasn't a very entertaining clown. He was just kind of a creepy clown. Clown's kind of creepy anyway, but still. So there's that. Pennywise technically you can't kill Pennywise by any conventional means. I mean, you can physically hurt him. You can. But you have to basically weaken him with your will. You could still theoretically be afraid, but you have to be able to overcome those fears. Or, just don't fear him. Now, not being afraid of him does not mean you're automatically going to win. However, it means that whatever power he can have over you, it's severely weakened or just cut off. If you're not afraid of anything, he's got no theoretical power over you. Even if you are afraid of things, but you get over those fears, you use your courage, you overcome fear, it severely weakens him. Um, Also, he's capable of feeling fear too, which is an added weakness of him. If for a long time he was an apex predator that was not challenged. Then these kids came and he felt fear for the first time, self doubt. It's like, what? These kids? Like, what? But that still doesn't mean you're safe, because he's still a shapeshifter. He can take on whatever form he wants, even if you're not afraid of him. Like he did when against Losers Club, when he transformed into the spider mandibles, the leper, things along those lines. I believe he's physically stronger than a normal person there by all definition. And then of course he turned into a giant spider at one point. And I think just that's just because that was the form he took. But also the form that we could best recognize. And of course, he has the famous deadlights inside of him, which by all technical definition might actually be his real form. Now, the deadlights function in a way that essentially, if any sane human being looks at them, it will either A, just flat out kill them after long-term staring, B, drive them crazy. Now, I have made the argument many times that take out human nature, and it really depends on your mental sense. Like when I put him against the Joker, it's a little spoiler for that fight. I'm not saying wins the fight, but a little spoiler in that fight. The deadlights would not affect the Joker in the same way it would affect a normal person, because the Joker is even beyond insanity. And they've even determined he's like super sane. He's beyond that. It would probably dumb him down to insanity, in all honesty. I can't remember exactly how I depicted that. But yeah, it doesn't affect other people the same way, like other beings. Particularly, like, I had no one suggested this fight to me, but let's say he went up against Cthulhu for some reason. The deadlights might not even work on Cthulhu at all. He might just go, ooh, shiny light. That might not be all he does. Because Cthulhu is like an entirely different type of being compared to anything he's gone up against. Note to self, though, I won't put that on the list right now, but if anyone wants to suggest that fight, I'll gladly put it on the list. But anyway, so yeah, the deadlights they won't work on. Okay, won't work is not the right question. Thing to say. I have doubts they would work on different individuals, supernatural individuals. They'd probably affect differently. Higher planed individuals, where they would affect differently. So it's very hit and miss. Now, hypothetically speaking, you probably could kill, because the turtle died. Turtle choked on a galaxy and died. That's in the Stephen King books. So by all definition, Pennywise could theoretically die. He could theoretically be killed. Just not in the form that we deal with him in. He'd have to actually go and beat him in his own world in his true form. That'd be the way you'd actually have to kill him. Slenderman. Now, Slenderman, I remember I've had Slenderman on the series before. He went up against Candyman in one fight. And the thing about Slenderman is that it's really ill-defined what his ability set is, or what he even is. There's a lot of theories going around what Slenderman actually is. So, Slenderman, I've heard people say that he is a being brought together by so many people actually believing he exists that it actually caused him to become an actual being, actually bring him into the world. So he's a being composed primarily of thought then. Other things say he's just a supernatural entity that, a spirit or demon. Other people say that he is maybe an ethereal being, not even a creature or a man. See, and the problem is that there's so many ways to interpret what he is, that maybe he's an extra-dimensional being, that it's really hard to pinpoint how we determine how to use him in the fight. So the way I'm going to do 3 different versions of Slenderman in this scenario. I'm going to do him as a being created by thought, that was created by cumulative thought, and everyone just kind of willed him into existence. B, an interdimensional being, and C, as kind of just a supernatural creature of some kind. So those are the 3 forms, physical forms, if you want to call that physical, forms of Slenderman that's going to be used in this fight. Now, he's always depicted as being very, very tall and thin and lanky. He's usually somewhere upper in the 9 to 10 feet range, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, but always thin, tall, and lanky. Seems to be a sadistic individual, liking to stalk people, cause psychological terror. Now, it's not know whether he eats people or even if he actually does kill people. But he's supposedly taken so many children and just kidnapped them, and there's been no traces of them. He's capable of manipulating his body, kind of like basically like tentacles come out. He can make it from his fingers, stretch his arms out pretty much, tentacles from his back, and capable of supposedly floating in place, like just kind of, which made people think he might be like an ethereal being of some kind. He's more than likely stronger than his body implies. He's like probably got supernatural strength to him. He's not like super genius or anything, but he's clearly got some intelligence to him. He's gonna be cunning. He likes to manipulate individuals, so he's got that going for him as well. The question is, can he feel fear? Can anything like that? We have no idea what his emotional state is, if he has any at all, or if he's just being driven by a certain instinct compulsion. So, for the sake of this fight, we're gonna have to deal with the fact that because we don't know enough about him, that he doesn't really feel emotions, just like primal natural instincts that come with his nature. It's implied though that he is scared by things like fire, things along those lines. I think it's stated that he was it Candyman who maybe had some pyrokinesis, or was it him who had some pyrokinesis? I think it was Candyman who maybe had some pyrokinesis. I don't think the Slenderman does. But again, it's also possible he's capable of warping through dimensions, I think it's very possible he can do like some shadow manipulation. I think that's very possible given the nature of him. But I pretty much digress, because Slenderman is a very guy to do a fight about, because there's just not a lot of information on him. Or what information there is just not enough to give a comprehensive examination of how we would really do in a fight. What was that? Why do these people want to kill for Slenderman? Anyway, and I'll admit I'm interested in the movie, but that trailer was terrible. So we'll see what happens with that. But how does this fight break down? Well, it's pretty simple. Let's say Slenderman's just eking around Derry, Maine, and he's the Losers Club. He's stuck in the Losers Club. Now the Losers Club, having already been dealing with the clown Pennywise, thinking this is just Pennywise at this moment. And when eventually Slenderman comes to confront them, it's like, no, we stand against you. It's like, Slenderman's just kind of, and maybe he takes one of the kids, like, it's like, what is it? And then but before he takes the kid away, Pennywise is like, that kid is mine. And it's like, who are you? It's like, the kid is mine. I'm using the obviously, because that's the one most people are going to be using for these fights. And it's like, this kid is mine, buddy. And it's like, my food. And then Slenderman just, a weird presence around something, like a sort of like a weird raspy screech comes out of Scarlet, like, and even Pennywise like, oh yeah, it's like, you think you're tough? So it's like, no. So basically, whatever kid they take, they're able to get away. And Slen's like, oh come on, buddy, is that the best you got? And just Slender, like, he turns into like maybe the werewolf or something. So maybe getting some hits on Slenderman. Slenderman just boom, boom, boom. It's like, whatever sounds he makes, just whacks Pennywise the side. Pennywise, like, I imagine for being that size with supernatural strength, a long, just drawn up boom, whacks, throws Pennywise. It's like, oh, you think you're a tough guy, huh? It's like, well, let's see how you do with this, buddy. Starts doing all these forms. Slenderman just doesn't give a shit about those forms. Slenderman just throws out. Tendrils come, kind of wrap around Pennywise, but Pennywise can just shapeshift as well, because it turns into a bunch of rats, and rats start chewing on Slenderman. Slenderman just wipes them off. Pennywise again now has those cloud cones, like, don't. And surprisingly, Pennywise is kind of being the heroic, like, get out of here, kids! I'll eat you later! And it just comes in with those giant insect claws, kind of stabs into the Slenderman. Slenderman's like, now I'm feeling pain. Again, both these guys don't really go up against supernatural individuals very often, but Pennywise has on more occasions. He has dealt with the Turtle on occasions, and probably dealt with other individuals from the Macroverse from time to time. So he has occasionally dealt with more supernatural individuals than Slenderman has. But so Slenderman's not used to someone fighting back. This time, now Slenderman's actually getting, like, legitimately, not angry in terms of emotion, but feral. It's like, he's attacking, and so he just comes in, just screeches at Pennywise, who's kind of like, he's trying to sense out his fear from this guy. he's not getting anything. He's getting like a primal rage out of him, but he's not getting any sort of fear or emotion out of it. And it's starting to really kind of mess with Pennywise a little bit. It's like, why can't I make this guy why aren't you feeling fear? It's like, feel fear, be afraid, and then just whips Pennywise apart, who still able to put himself back together, but now just, yeah, it's like, yo, and now I have to go back to the point where I said that we're dealing with 3 different versions of the Slender Man. If we're going with the idea that he is just a supernatural creature, because we're pretty much getting into the final part of this fight right now. If we're going with the idea he's a supernatural creature who can, by all definition, just be killed with the right thing, with the right process of killing something supernatural living, otherwise you can kill him, I am going to give the fight to Pennywise. Despite the fact that he's not feeling fear, he also just doesn't have any real techniques or anything that could kill Pennywise. I mean, he could keep ripping him apart, and maybe that might kill him eventually, but I don't see that doing anything. Also, the Deadlights, really, I don't think the Deadlights would do anything to the Slender Man. They might cause him to just stare at him like, ooh, pretty, but the Slender Man, just the type of being Slender Man is supposedly described to be, it's particularly if we're going into the interdimensional being or the being created solely by thought. If we're going, especially with the thought one, I don't think that's going to do a damn thing. He's got no legitimate mind to break or anything like that. He's just got like primal instincts. He has no emotion or theoretical personality apart from like maybe it's the touch of sadism he likes. So I don't, and even with the supernatural being, we have no idea how the Deadlights really affect supernatural beings very much. So I have to say the Deadlights won't really do anything in this. However, if we're going with a supernatural just being Slender Man, Pennywise I think would eventually just turn into that spider and just rip him apart. And, Slender Man just, and then, eventually just kind of like eats him. If we're going with the interdimensional being, that's a trickier subject. Because hypothetically speaking, especially if we give him some shadow manipulation powers, which I would imagine the Slender Man probably has, I think he could possibly pull a win out simply by, taking Pennywise, bringing him out of dimensions and sending him toward either his dimension or actually going to the macroverse. By all definition, of a place where his form, he's actually more capable of being killed in the macroverse, I'm imagining, because if the turtle can die, by that definition, Pennywise can die. So I think because of that, I think Slender Man actually holds the edge, or he could just take him to another dimension, whatever. Whether he can transverse through infinite dimensions is, whatever. You can make an argument, you can make a not argument. I think because of that, though, he could take him to a plane where he'd be more easily killed, and then Pennywise is, I think, done for. And then, so we're 1-1 right now. So the tiebreaker one is the being composed of thought. How do you kill a being composed by thought? I mean, yeah, you could theoretically just bludgeon him to death constantly, but does that kill a being? Do you think a being composed by thought to death? I don't know. It's a really tough individual. Now, granted, there is an argument to be said that if he's a being composed by thought, then that mental battle that took place between Pennywise and the Loser Club, that actually does play a factor, because that's one of the biggest ways to beat Pennywise is to basically, overcome things and just beat him with your sheer tenacity, spirit, and willpower. So by that definition, it immediately becomes more of a mental battle near the end. And can Pennywise overcome that Slender Man, a being composed of thought, if we're going with that form? Here's the thing about that, and this is where we're getting to the real convoluted territory of this fight. Assuming that it took millions and millions of people just believing in him to bring him into existence, if that's the thought capacity of millions of people in one being, not necessarily all their minds in one, but all their minds together brought him in, and all the power of all those minds together formed this creature, and he has the power, theoretically speaking, of all their minds. Pennywise has trouble with just one kid. I don't think he could take on millions of minds. And not necessarily again, it's technically one being's mind, just having the power because of it being brought to life by one mind, or by millions of minds. So again, convoluted as shit. I hope you. I think I'm making myself clear enough that it's understandable what I'm trying to say, but still, it's So in that regard, no, Pennywise loses the mental battle and then loses the fight. So I give the fight to Slenderman. This is going to be one of those weird things. 2 out of 3 times, Slenderman wins the fight, depending on what fight we're going with here, or which form of the Slenderman we're going with here. Just because the Slenderman is the weird ass nature of Slenderman. Slenderman's one of the. I mean, if you keep suggesting Slenderman, that's fine. But Slenderman is one of those guys I don't like to do on these videos very often, just because of how much lack of information we have on him. So it's hard to do a concise battle with him. I'm going 2 out of 3 times, depending on which form we're using. Slenderman wins because he's just so freaking weird. And given Pennywise's select weaknesses, I think that Slenderman exploits those select weaknesses. But if we're dealing with just a straight supernatural being in the Slenderman that can be theoretically killed, Pennywise wins the fight. I think he wins that fight hands down. If it's the interdimensional being, Slenderman wins the majority of those fights. I think, though, there's still a scenario where Pennywise wins. It's not as great as, say, the ones that Slenderman wins, but there's still a scenario where he wins. And if we're going with it being composed of thought, then I don't think Pennywise has a chance because he can't even. He had trouble even when they had that fight again. The ritual of Chud. Even when the Loser Club was grown up and he was still struggling. Was it Peter or the lead kid? He still struggled, but Pennywise still struggled against him. So again, the power of a million minds, theoretically bringing one mind into existence, and still having that power of a million minds, hypothetically speaking, greatly overpowers Pennywise. So, yeah, I don't think he wins that fight pretty much at all. He's being created by thought, the Slender Man. But let me know if you think different. If you do, that is totally fine. Slenderman is one of those guys I'm never going to argue on because I am not a Slenderman expert. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, who wants to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win, Star Wars, superhero, magic, what if, anything I do on this channel, put that in the comments below as well. I'll get to that at some point. Another who would win on Friday. Ocean's 8 this Thursday. And the usual throughout the weekend. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you folks next time.